Hey friends, it's Melanie. So I have some really big news that I'm not quite going to tell you about, except to say that we have some really special company coming both on Saturday and on Wednesday. Two really important people to us that have really influenced us are going to be coming and staying here at our house. So we're really excited. And to help things run smoothly and make sure we have plenty of time to chit chat and do the things we want to do, I'm trying to get as much of the meals done now ahead of time so that we're ready to go. So I am going to be canning the beans that I need for while they're here, so that all I have to do is dump them and heat them up, and because they're not frozen, they'll heat super quickly, and they just kind of sit in the jar and marinate and they get yummier and yummier. So we've got a few days for them to sit, and they should be really yummy by the time our company gets here. So what we do is take 1 cup of dried beans per quart jar. If you want to do pint jars, you just do ½ cup of dried beans. And then, because soaking them is so good for your tummy, I wanted to show you how we do that as well. What you do is you take a cup of dried beans, just the same as these here, and then you fill it up with water. Let it soak overnight, so 8 to 12 hours. And then if you can't get to it in the morning, go ahead and fill it back up with water again. Just make sure that you've rinsed it so it's nice, fresh, clean water. And then before you're ready to actually can them, you're going to rinse them a couple times. So let me show you that process. So as you can see, the ones that we soaked have swollen way up. And there really is no way for you to just soak a big batch of them and then measure into your jar. I've tried a couple different things, and depending on how long you soak them, the measurement is different. So after about 8 hours, this is about 1.5 cups, but you can see clearly that now that it's been closer to 24 hours, it's closer to 2 cups, or maybe even just a little more than 2 cups. So that's not really going to work that way. So you're going to put 1 cup of dried, go ahead and soak them for however long you need to. Just make sure you're rinsing every 8 to 12 hours, and then you fill them up with water and you can can them from that point. So to rinse them, it's super easy. I use this super handy little strainer. You can get these on Amazon for, I think they're like $6, and it's what I use for my water kefir. So if you're making water kefir and getting all those yummy probiotics, this is good for that. Okay. So I just dump it on like that, and the water will have some color to it from the pigment of the skins. Once you've rinsed them a couple times, and you carefully fill them to that lip, right there on the shoulder of the jar. You can add salt, you can add in a green chili. As long as it's a very small lean piece, you can put bacon in there. You can, cube up some meat and put it in there, because the processing time for beans and meat is the same. Okay, so for the dried beans, all you do is fill it up to that shoulder, just like we did with the soaked beans, and they will absorb all of that water. Get it right to the shoulder and you're good to go. Now, if we have well water here, so I don't worry about the tap water. If you are in a city, you might want to consider getting filtered water, just so that you're not canning them with all of the chlorine and stuff that's in your tap water. Or if you have a filter for your house, then you won't have to worry about it that way either. If you're canning meat, and let's say you ended up with 6 quart jars full of meat, but you have that one space for a jar and you don't want to put an empty jar in your canner, then what you can do is you can throw in some beans, because the processing time on dry beans and meat is the same. So sometimes I've only had 4 quarts worth of meat that I've wanted to can. So I just fill these up real quick, throw them in, and you have meat and beans and have dinner practically made. So that's another tip that I super love. Okay, we need to get some water in the canner. Now if you're used to water bath canning, you know that you fill it up to a certain level inside of your canner, and it has to be an inch above, the water has to be an inch above the top end of the jar. Now when you're pressure canning, you just need to follow the manufacturer's directions. Mine, it says between 2 and 3 quarts of water, and I found that right at about 2.5 quarts just processes them really nice. So if you have too much water or not enough water in there, you can end up with a whole bunch of siphoning. Siphoning is where when your canner is depressurizing, then it starts pulling the liquid back out of your jars, and you end up losing a bunch of the liquid in your jars, and it makes a big mess in your canner. So 2.5 quarts is what works good for my Presto, and I'll show you the process. Something else that I've done in the past that's really helpful is, you can see I've got the tall canner, and that means that I can put 2 racks in there and double stack my pint jars. So where I can do 7 quarts, which would be the same as 14 pints, I can fit in here 18 pints. So that would be the same as 9 quarts. So that's 2 extra quarts for the same amount of work. And then they process 20 minutes faster. So I really love doing it that way. That's one of my favorites. But today this was convenient, so that's what we're doing today. I'll show you sometime how to double stack them. Okay, that should be about sufficient. As you all know, tattler lids are my favorite because they are reusable, and I have reused them and reused them already, and they are fabulous. So, seal goes on the lid, and then it goes on the jar. Now because of the way that you process these, you don't have to heat all of this first. It has all been run through the dishwasher and is nice and clean though. Okay. Now just as you guys think about the cycle of the homestead and, you know, always being prepared for the next season and what's coming up, something to consider is as you're bringing applesauce and canned apples and canned peaches up from the basement or the cellar or wherever you have them stored, your jars accumulate upstairs. So this is a super way to get your jars back downstairs without just having to put them in an empty box. And I don't know about you guys, but gardening season is super hectic here at our house. And doing stuff like this means that I can work hard on the garden and not have to worry about the family being hungry. So I'm going to be getting a lot of potatoes and beans and meat and the kind of staples that go along with all those amazing vegetables that we'll be growing. Working on getting those canned and taken back downstairs so they're ready for our summer gardening. Now remember, when you're putting the rings on the tattler lids, the trick to making sure that these don't build up pressure and blow out the top and make a big mess inside your canner, put the lid on and then only tighten it until that jar spins freely like that. That's all you have to do. It's less than if you're using the metal lid where you do it to fingertip tight, which is almost a quarter of a turn tighter than that. Okay, those are ready to go. Oops, I forgot one. So now we've got water in the canner and we're just going to pop them in. But I have a few different recipes I want to use these for, and so that's why this time I just want plain old beans. Alright, there's water in the canner. The jars all have their own lids on, not screwed down too tight. The lid gets locked on, and we're going to set the weight right here because it needs to vent for 10 minutes before you put that on. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. So while we're waiting for that canner to come up to temperature, I just have to show you real quick here. We're doing a couple of pork roasts and a couple of hams on the bottom. We are so excited about all these visitors, and I just can't wait till I get to show off who's here next week. So stay tuned. You can hear the pot is gurgling and there's puffs of steam coming out. Now it's really hard for the camera to pick it up, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is a good steady stream of steam, and it's been coming out for about 10 minutes. So we are going to go ahead and put the weight on. Now I do have a pressure gauge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this pressurize up to, hard to see in there, I need about 13 to 15 pounds of pressure. And I have a really hard time keeping it at 13, so I usually just let it get up to right around 15. And then that's going to need to go once it reaches pressure. Don't, you see the steam coming out. You have to let it get up to that pressure. Don't start timing until you hit that pressure. Once it's there, this will be doing its little jiggly business, and you're going to want to turn the temperature down to just like medium, between medium high and medium, closer to medium high. So you want this to rock steadily, and you want this to reach the pressure, and then it has to stay at that pressure for the full 90 minutes. That's super important. Okay, you can see that we're up to 16 pounds of pressure now. This is a 15-pound weight, so it takes that much pressure before it starts to rock. If the instructions say to do it at 10 pounds of pressure or 13 pounds of pressure, don't worry if this isn't rocking. If you don't have a dial gauge, then you go by whether it's rocking or not. So now that we've come up to pressure, I've turned the dial down to about medium high. And we'd like to kind of keep it right at this range. If it starts to drop too quickly, I'll crank the heat back up because I don't want it to go down below 13 pounds, or I will have to stop the timer and reset it. So I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 90 minutes. Okay, my timer has gone off. We're going to let the pressure come all the way down to 0. This needs to stay on, otherwise steam will spit out of here. Once it's depressurized, this will pop down, and so will this valve back here. So we leave everything intact, the lid all closed up until that happens. What? What? You're going to stand on that? Okay, Annabelle. What are you going to tell us?
Are you hot enough?
It is hot.
Yeah. I'm done with the camera.
Oh, you're all done with the camera.
The camera, I'm not done.
See you later.
Yeah.
Okay, you can see pressure's come all the way down. We've got both valves are down, so now the canner is safe to open. It's still super hot in there, so make sure when you open it, that you open the steam away from you. And let it vent for a second before you get your hands over the top of that. Okay. Now remember, with the tattler lids, they have to be tightened down after you take them out. So you want to get to these as soon as the pressure is let out of the canner. You went down? Okay, just a second. Let me get you. completely cool. I'll let them sit overnight, and the tattler lids will dish under. You won't hear that ping that you hear from the metal lid, but once it's dipped under and you take the band off and test it, make sure it's tight, you know you're good to go. And you have a ready-made meal. This is how we do fast food since we can't go out and get any. Having stuffed canned on the shelf makes a happy mama and happy fed kids at a reasonable hour. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know if you have any questions. And then just in case you didn't know, we are also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So go find us there. There's links in our on our channel page. Thanks so much. Bye.
On the doobly-doo.
Yeah, on the doobly-doo. Exactly.
I ready.